Well, thanks for being with us on this Youth Day edition of Morning Live. President Cyril Ramaphosa will today deliver an update on the presidential initiatives that are aimed at stimulating youth employment, and it will take place at a local stadium in Mthatha in the Eastern Cape. Now, this will, of course, mark the 46th anniversary of the 1976 Soweto Student uprisings. Youth Day commemorations will also celebrate under the theme promoting sustainable livelihoods and resilience of young people for a better future. But to discuss some of the challenges faced by the youth and programs and support that may be available to young people, we join on the line now or rather via Zoom, by the Executive Chairperson of the National Youth Development Agency, Asanda Luwaca. Thanks so much for your time and welcome to Morning Live.
Morning, and thank you for having me on your show this morning.
Now, Asanda, let's just start by talking about the National Youth Development Agency, what the agency does for those who still don't know, and of course, the programs that you are engaged in.
All right, so the NYDA, National Youth Development Agency, is an agency that would have been established from an act of parliament. And really the main mandate of the agency is to mainstream youth development across the country. So we've got a variety of products and services that we offer to young people, both financial and non-financial support. But ultimately, it would be support on areas of development. So education and skills development, we offer scholarships and bursaries. We also link young people with our stakeholders, NSFAS. When we speak about youth that are interested in work opportunities, we provide them with the platform. We've got a zero-rated platform, sayouth.mobi, wherein we link prospective employers with prospective employees. We also have a variety of products that we offer to youth that are looking to either start or expand their businesses. That would take form or shape rather, or to take the form of your mentorships, business management trainings, skills development trainings on the non-financial aspect. But then on the financial, we offer grant funding based on a needs assessment of those particular businesses.
Asanda, I'm sure, coming to the National Youth Development Agency, looking at the unacceptably high youth unemployment rate, you're a relatively new board, so you would have come in knowing exactly what some of these challenges are, as well as some of the criticisms of the National Youth Development Agency. So what is your vision, and what do you think could have been better done in the past?
Yeah. So at the level of the board, you're correct in stating that there's never been a point in history where a board would have been seized with all these challenges that we are currently faced with. We've got youth unemployment that is at an utmost high. We've got issues of gender-based violence and femicide. So really, when we came in at the backdrop of all these socioeconomic challenges, we really had to be an agency that would hit the ground running. And part of our vision would be to really build on an agency that is credible, that is capable, and that is also responsive to the plight of young people across the country. I think it's safe to say that we don't have the luxury, never mind at the level of the board, but even as a country, just to merely talk about youth development. But we need to be in a position of providing practical solutions so that we are able to ultimately, change the material conditions that young people find themselves in.
So let's talk about that, and just by looking at numbers, because if you go onto the National Youth Development Agency's website, it states, for example, 491,337 young people were trained to enter the job market, I think, which is what you were referring to right now. But just in terms of tracking them, once you've done the work in terms of trying to upskill them, do you actually track whether young people do actually get employment after your intervention?
Definitely. So our tracking, we've got monitoring and evaluation system that is in place, precisely because we understand that, some of the financial or the investment in young people goes beyond just, depositing money, right? So the reason why, there are various reasons rather why small to medium enterprises would fail in the first year of establishment. So being alive to those realities, we would then be able to ensure that we also give the necessary support throughout the entire process of young people establishing businesses. So we provide mentorships. We've got a range of mentors, young people themselves, who would really then take those particular youth enterprises through the challenges, as well as providing those practical solutions. We've got the business management trainings. That's just some of the interventions from a business point of view. But equally, even on an employment point of view, because we also are alive to the realities that, by and large, we need obviously more young people entering into the economy, and not just that, but then where they may be experiencing challenges, we are then able to be best positioned to almost serve as a linkage between the employer and the employee.
So more pointedly, perhaps the question is, of those 491,337 young people that went through the training, the job preparedness training, life skills training, do you know, as the National Youth Development Agency, how many of them have actually been absorbed into employment, wherever it may be?
Oh, all right. So, okay, part of the training goes beyond just, equipping young people with those necessary skills. But one of the mandates that we do have is creating market linkages. So we don't just necessarily train young people, they receive their certificates and they sit at home with a certificate, but they're unable to implement implement the skills that they would have developed or acquired due to those trainings. So we do provide those market linkages, but in terms of the exact figures, I would not have them at my disposal at this point in time. However, there is a large throughput rate insofar as the trainings, but then also linking those young people that would have undergone the training with the relevant employment.
And with regard to the presidential youth employment intervention, how is that working? And also, again, have you been able to track just how well that has worked for young people in terms of, again, beyond creating the linkages, actually making, inroads into denting the youth unemployment rate?
Yeah. So equally with the presidential employment initiative, what we do is also provide, the monitoring system so that we're able to track the young people, the particular youth, the youth cohorts that would have entered into these particular programs, and see them and walk them through the entire process. So yet again, it's not just us depositing a group of young people and leaving them to fend for themselves, but we also then are able to take them and being with them throughout the entire process of those interventions that are in place.
Asanda, 8,526 youth-owned enterprises supported with financial interventions, including grant and relief funding by the National Youth Development Agency. Let's talk about that. What form, how much does that funding and grant actually take?
Pardon, can you just repeat the last part?
So just in terms of the funding that you provide, the financial assistance to young people, how much do you, what's the most that you can actually fund a business?
Okay, so our funding thresholds are kept according to various levels or cohorts. So we've got the first funding bracket, which is from 0 or 1 to 10,000. Then we've got the second that would start from 11 to 50. And then the last threshold rather would be from 50 to 200,000. And those obviously will be based on a needs assessment to make a determination as to whether a young person who would have applied for the last threshold of 200,000 would be able to not just sustain that particular funding, but also yield a positive investment. We also want to have a positive economic spin-off that would result from us providing the necessary seed funding to businesses. So where we are positioned, we'll offer that funding, and obviously those particular enterprises would need to prove, the number of youth that will be employed as a result of this funding, the social interventions that would be in place. But even within the breakdown, how many youth with disabilities are employed, how many youth who are women, youth in rural areas, those are just some of, the key areas that we focus when we consider such proposals that get brought forward.
And it's good to know that you are looking at some of the nuances that need to be taken care of here. But how much is the budget of the National Youth Development Agency, and how much of that budget goes towards funding, grants, and of course training, because that seems to make up a large component of what you do?
Yeah, so we receive our budget through National Treasury, through appropriated funds. And so for the current financial year under review, our budget is just short of $1 billion, whereas we are sitting at around 800 million that we've received. And certain budgets would be ring-fenced for certain or particular programs, right? But then also linked to that would be how much of that would be set aside for your grant. So what we do is, we would have those particular monies that are ring-fenced for our grant program. We also then would rely heavily on donor funding, but also collaborations. So in the instance of grant funding, for instance, we would then be in a position to partner with strategic departments such as your small business development and say, collectively, where our mandate or where our threshold does not necessarily provide the necessary assistance to young people, can the Department of Small Business come on board and through their various entities, your CFA, your SIDA, be able to assist those particular youth that would not necessarily qualify from our end. So we work on collaborations and leveraging off on those strategic relations.
Well, Asanda, we have to leave it there in the interest of time, but it is Youth Month all month, so hopefully we'll have more opportunities to have conversation and maybe bring in the youth on it. But thanks so much for being with us today, Asanda Luwaca, who's the chairperson of the National Youth Development.